like a spider creeping up your bed at night to bite you. Look at Schwarzenegger. He couldn't get the legislature to put a tax on TVs or ban big ones, so he just did it under the California Energy Agency. Look at what's happening in Washington State, where employers tax you now off how you drive, and they have to collect the money. I mean, they're already implementing this everywhere. We know under UNESCO they're brainwashing kids in public school. I mean, this is a criminal cult of pirates. How do we ever extricate ourselves from them? How do we ever remove them? Hopefully some type of criminal charges against these different scientists engaged in fraud. I mean, is there anything we can do to this gang of boobies?
Well, CEI, Competitive Enterprise Institute, that I'm associated with, has petitioned EPA to reopen their record on the basis of the scandal that's been exposed, or I say affirmed. There are people looking into what are called key TAM issues, where you essentially sue on behalf of the king and recover the king's treasure, because, again, there's an intent to defraud on the face of these emails and in the annotated computer code. People are looking at RICO actions against these individuals because fraud could trigger that, and so on. So whether I know that, I don't know. There are attempts to whitewash at the various universities involved right now. I've got a notice of intent to sue NASA by the end of the year. It'll be January before I get around to it. If they don't cough up their equivalent of this data in these emails, because I've been denied for more than 2 years, and I finally had enough when this thing broke. And so we're going to have to use the courts just like they do. Now, if we get involved in this treaty, it has a provision that has a 3-year cooling-off period for getting out, which is 3 years to generate all sorts of... You saw what they did to the U.S. under Bush. 3 years of generating intense diplomatic and political pressure against America to stay in an energy rationing and wealth transfer scheme. So you can't get into this mess. Now, let me tell you something. There's a three-legged stool they're pushing. It's the Kyoto scheme, which on its face was not binding, but our courts might just implement it. But with the Law of the Sea Treaty, which has a tribunal, which we will have to implement their rulings here, and we are supposedly going to ratify in Obama's first term in office, in fact, next year, and then the International Criminal Court, which we're told we're going to re-sign the Rome Statute, the treaty creating the International Criminal Court. Well, you get those three, as he planned, and you've got a a serious problem. You've got a very difficult problem to manage as a matter of law, because our courts are increasingly radicalized, as you know, but increasingly international. And the swing vote on this issue, quite clearly, is Justice Kennedy. And he's on record saying we need to find out what those nice Europeans think our Constitution says before we implement it ourselves. So we've got a problem. You don't get involved in the treaties, but...
America is being swallowed by an unelected private offshore corporate government, the New World Order.
Well, let's just say there are people who have us in their sight, and they see us coming. Let me tell you something. Do you think Obama politically can afford to walk away from Copenhagen without some piece of paper in hand, even though it's going to be a transfer of wealth from here to there? Politically, knowing how politics works and his base in the media? No. So India and China and the rest of the world see him coming. They know when he goes over there on Friday, he has to give them whatever they want, because he cannot leave empty-handed from Copenhagen in an embarrassment twice in 1 year in his first year in office. So they see him coming. We have an amateur, but an amateur with all the wrong instincts and a very dangerous agenda. And therefore, let me just say this. We're going to be as active as we possibly can be through the courts here, through CEI, with whatever our resources will allow. And I'm hoping some private entities will stand up for once and stop trying to cut a deal and fight back. And so
that's another big point you made. All these big corporations, if they're not behind the swindling, they've said, okay, I'll join you, just don't rape me. And that's what the EPA said last week, as you know. They said, look, all you big corporations, get in line, or we're going to selectively enforce. I mean, they're literally like a mobster beating up the little grocery store owner. When are we going to grow a backbone to these parasites and say no?
It's even worse than window insurance. What they were saying was tapping the cage and saying, you better pay me to protect you from my lunatic friend here. Be ashamed if this thing got out of the cage. But the problem is they also said it that day later, we plan on doing both. No matter what you pass in Congress, we plan on trying to do what we can done to the Clean Air Act anyway. Let me tell you about a provision in these two cap-and-trade bills real quickly. They're 500 pages different in size, okay? They're not the same bill. But they have one provision that was identically drafted and buried in both. In the Senate bill, it's called Section 707. And what it says is every law in the United States Code shall, not may, shall be implemented by the President as a CO2 suppression law, a carbon dioxide suppression global warming law.
It's a carbon dictatorship.
That's the Department of Agriculture and Interior Permitting. That's the tax code. That's the Endangered Species Act. It's everything. There's no certainty for sale, and these suckers in business who keep saying, well, I just need certainty. I need to buy peace. I'm going to sue for peace. Good luck, buddy. You are selling us all out thinking you're getting yourself a deal, and you are not.
Yeah, there's no making a deal with these vampires. I mean, this is a greedy... I mean, folks, I'm not trying to demonize them. I've studied them. These are really hellish, horrible control freaks. I mean, at the end of the day, they aren't going to stop, are they?
No, look at the provisions they're putting in these bills. They want full and total control in the name of global warming. But, hey, Alex, we're saving the planet. What about the children? You wouldn't want to be you wouldn't want to kill children, would you? I mean, they've practiced their routine. The problem is certainty is not for sale. And I've got all these businesses. I've had at least 2 CEOs say to me, well, Chris, I just need certainty. And they don't get it. Read the bill. I know it's 1,300 pages long, but somebody has to. Read the bill. Certainty is not for sale. You cannot sue for peace with these people. The day it goes into effect, you know what they want. More. And let me leave you with this. Did you know that nothing ever proposed cap-and-trade legislation, Kyoto, would, according to anybody, under any scenario or set of assumptions, detectably impact the climate? So it is not reasonable to conclude it's about the climate. It's only reasonable to conclude it's about what it would do. And you know what it would do, but it's not about what it wouldn't do. That's just not logical.
Unbelievable. We've got to have you back up just to break down the legislation quickly in the last minute we've got. Do you think that they're going to be able to ram through the cap-and-trade, I mean, not the treaty, but the cap-and-trade bill that's passed the House?
They're trying to shake people down, as you described with EPA. I don't think folks are buying it. I think there's a chance we'll get a one-line, the EPA Clean Air Act as written shall not be implemented this way, but the Dems will fight that tooth and nail. So the long answer is to add that to no, but it will not be without a struggle in the spring. They're going to try to slip it in because you don't pass the biggest tax increase in American history late in an even numbered, meaning election year.
And they just don't care how unpopular they are. There is that sense of urgency that they're rushing everything through. If we can hold them another 2 years, will their global carbon dictatorship be derailed permanently?
I think so, because you can't tell people the sky constantly is falling when the beaches and the sky are just where we left them.
Amazing. He's the author of Red Hot Lies, How Global Warming Alarmists Use Threats, Fraud, and Deception to Keep You Misinformed. He's Christopher Horner, and CEI, Competitive Enterprise Institute, is the organization. I look forward to talking to you again in the future. Very impressive.
Thank you, Alex. Bye-bye.